Gun-controlled Chicago surpassed 600 homicides for each of the past 2 consecutive years. The city first surpassed 600 homicides last year in 2016, ending the year with nearly 800 dead and some 4,400 shooting victims. That was an increase of more than 287 homicides and an increase of nearly 1,500 shooting victims from 2015. 2017 has seen a decrease in homicides in Chicago with 658 homicides for the year to date with a total of 3,471 shooting victims, but the year is not over yet. Chicago has also long been known for having some of the strictest gun control laws in the nation. The city banned handgun ownership in 1982 and over the next 10 years witnessed a 41% spike in the number of murders. This is as compared to an 18% increase across the entire United States. The Chicago Tribune even noted the complete failure of the policy, going on to make note that the nation's capital, Washington, D.C. also tried a very similar policy outlawing handgun ownership in 1976. The city then, in turn, saw the number of homicides rise by an exponential 156% during a time when the nation as a whole saw an increase of just 32%, giving D.C. the dubious distinction of vying for the title of murder capital of America. And why shouldn't such a ban lead to an increase in murder? After all, when bans are enacted, only the criminals remain armed. It is a fact that has been proven time and time again. Yet Chicago persists. The handgun ban was overturned in 2010 by the Supreme Court in _McDonald v. Chicago much as the 2008 District of Columbia v. Heller did in Washington. And again in both cities, city leaders, rather than serving the people that elected them, have diligently worked to preserve the ban at every single turn. Image result for gun violence in Chicago memes. The ban was overturned in 2010 via the Supreme Court ruling in _McDonald v. Chicago but city leaders have worked diligently to preserve the vestiges of the ban at every turn. Both the municipal and county limits on the number of gun stores allowed in Chicago, together with rules on the locations of those stores and a ridiculous amount of regulation on acquiring and carrying guns for self-defense, have coalesced to guarantee that criminals maintain an advantage similar to what they enjoyed while the ban was in place. The result of Chicago gun control is bloody and evident, with the Chicago police unsuccessful thus far in showing any demonstrable progress in reducing crime. Yet rather than allowing the city to arm themselves to fight back against the violence that is slaughtering the good citizens of Chicago caught in the crossfire, or holding those that commit crimes justly accountable for their actions, Cook County Commissioner Richard Boykin is proposing this preposterous plan to seek international help by appealing to the United Nations to meet with minority communities. He flew to New York on Thursday to discuss what he described as a quiet genocide in Chicago's black community with the UN's Assistant Secretary General for Peacebuilding Support, Oscar Fernandez-Trinco. Boykin's remarks, as reported by AFF- underscore the United Nations has a track record of protecting minority populations. There was tribal warfare between the Tutsis and the Hutus in Africa, and they deployed peacekeeping troops there to help save those populations and reduce the bloodshed. We have to do something. Black people in Chicago make up 30% of the population, but 80% of those who are killed by gun violence look, this gun violence in Chicago is still out of control. Quite frankly, we've got too many young people of color who are being killed by gun violence. And of course it's a genocide that's not being talked about nationwide or even here in Chicago. Boykin was exceedingly vague on exactly what it is he proposes the United Nations forces do once they arrive in Chicago, but proclaimed city and state leaders must make a total commitment to eliminating poverty, improving job opportunities and improving schools. Apparently, if soldiers are from a foreign land wearing the sky blue helmets of United Nations peacekeepers, it is all going to magically improve. When asked directly just exactly how sending the National Guard is any different, Boykin responded with the difference is, I'm not so sure that the National Guard is so used to peacekeeping in a peacekeeping role, The UN is trained in this. President Donald Trump himself stated in January of 2017 if Chicago could not get the gun violence epidemic wreaking havoc on the city under control, well then he would send in the National Guard to the streets of Chicago. That method to address the city's problem with violence attracted widespread ridicule. Meanwhile, Mayor Rahm Emanuel has declared the city of Chicago to be a Trump-free zone, proclaiming that we would rather have armed foreign soldiers to police Chicago, rather than the National Guard. I want you to think this through slowly and carefully. Fully armed soldiers from half the globe away with no loyalty to America or Americans with no concept of our laws or our Constitution are being asked to police Middle America, all because Emanuel has refused federal aid to stop the bloodshed in the very city he was elected to lead because he has chosen to put the black vote over and above the black people themselves. Related image. AFF reports that Emanuel is attempting to claim success in Chicago on this front by citing improvements in the school system, new companies hiring in Chicago, and the number of fatalities in the particularly violent neighborhood of Englewood is down. Emanuel states there was a story the other day in the paper about people feeling different about what's happening. For all of us that know what Englewood has stood for before, it's different and it's the residents saying it. Emanuel is citing the statistics as they stand this week, touting it as a success that there have only been 624 homicides in Chicago thus far as compared to 734 as of this time last year. This is a 15% reduction. However, carjackings have been rampant throughout the city with surging numbers over 2016. The Chicago Police Department states they are aggressively responding and making more arrests. However, it is a very difficult issue as police say the vast majority of the carjackings in question involve juvenile offenders. Juveniles are treated very differently in the justice system. Related image. Emanuel claims the city plans to add over 1,000 new police officers to the city's police force, as well as adding additional after-school programs serving an additional 115,000 kids, a summer jobs program to serve an additional 31,000, and another 7,500 to be added to mentoring programs. What Emanuel failed to mention is just how the city of Chicago and the state of Illinois, on a collision course with unsustainable debt, expect to be able to fund these programs. Emanuel states of his intentions to add these programs the goal is to make sure that we're not only reducing gun violence, but then giving our kids access to the type of mentoring and support so that they have a different choice in life. Except his words say one thing, and his actions say another. While he and his ilk make it impossible for the citizens of Chicago to arm and protect themselves against a rising criminal element that knows they will not be challenged in Chicago. Along with sanctuary policies and city leadership's preference for foreign soldiers patrolling their city streets, it's no wonder those able to leave are fleeing these cities, leaving behind the criminal element and those unable to fight back. Follow us on Facebook at Freedom Daily.